because that is easier. And then I'll share screen. Can everybody see that window?
Yeah, that's visible.
All right, cool. Let's get going. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Kubernetes Cluster API Azure weekly open office hours meeting. As you probably know, we are a sub-project of SIG Cluster Lifecycle under Kubernetes, and therefore we abide by their rules of conduct, which basically boils down to try to be nice to each other, try not to interrupt each other. We prefer using the raise hand feature here in Zoom. I will do my best to notice when you raise your hand, but there we go. But if I happen to miss you, then please go ahead and interrupt. It's a small group. We're all friends here. Yeah, that's it for the boilerplate. If you wanted to add your name here to the attendees list, that's really helpful for people to recognize each other later. And here at the beginning, we offer a little time for people who are here for the first time or want to speak up and introduce themselves, say maybe why they're here and what they're hoping to get out of today's meeting. And I'll just be quiet for a couple minutes and let people do that if they want to.
Hey, yeah, hi everyone. This is Harsh. So I just wanted to hang out around here. I'm trying to just playing around Capsy and I'm just getting started. So hopefully I'll be able to hang out more around here and be able to contribute back. Hello everyone.
Excellent. Welcome. Thanks for coming.
Awesome.
Okay. Hi everyone. I'm Rahul. I work with Adobe, and we've been running a small stealth project. Using Capset to provision our Kubernetes cluster. And first of all, thank you to the team and providing wonderful documentation and examples, and it has been really breeze to just been able to self-serve ourselves by looking at the examples and the documentation. So thanks for that. I have exchanged few notes or pointed out issues on some of the GitHub issues. Not sure if you have seen it, but so I pointed out a couple of issues we have been facing. So wanted some help around that.
Great. Thanks for participating. Thanks for coming. Welcome and welcome to Adobe.
Yeah, hi. This is Saurabh this side. I'm also from Adobe. Basically, me and Rahul, we are working together in the same team, and pretty much Rahul has covered what we are doing and how we are using Capsy. And yeah, we are facing few issues, so just wanted to bring it to the experts. Yeah.
Great. Yeah. Hopefully you came to the right place. Thanks for coming. Anyone else? I guess that's it. All right, great. Then we will move on to the open discussion, and the first topic is from you guys. Rahul, go ahead and take it away.
Yeah. So I'll just give a brief introduction as to how we are trying to use Capsy and how our journey has been and where we are right now. So our primary use case is to basically support Windows-based workloads on Kubernetes, and our use case is to basically provide basically an execution environment for running untrusted code. That is why we have chosen to use Capsy for running basically a Kubernetes cluster, because we could not get the right set of configuration with managed solutions like AKS and EKS. And since we are running untrusted code, so our primary requirement became that we needed Hyper-V containers, and none of the managed solutions provide Hyper-V containers. So we have been, experimenting and trying to set up our cluster with Windows, which are primarily Windows workers, and trying to, use Hyper-V based containers. So we've been running a few experiments for last, I would say, couple of quarters. And what we have seen, whenever our system tries to scale up, one of the primary issues that we see is around the issue is around the Windows VM boot up, where there seems to be some conflict between the boot up sequence of the Windows VM, and then there is this bootstrapping extension which kind of captures lays out to check I think the success status of the bootstrap process. So that kind of results in the node not joining the cluster, and even on if we look at the portal on the like Azure portal, so we see that the instance state is always like creating; it never gets into a running state. So we had a couple of debug sessions with the Azure customer support, and they mentioned that from their end, things look fine. The instance had booted up properly, and they see certain issues with the extension itself. But we were not really able to even, kind of log in into the node to even collect some logs or something. So we wanted help as to how we can go about to debug such kind of issues.
So as far as you can tell, it boils down to some issue with the VM extension that's preventing the node from joining, which definitely could happen.
So let me give you one other issue. What we had faced, I think a quarter back, was that what I saw with the VM code, by what I could look in the repo, is that the extension is just simply a wait loop. It is just waiting for the cloud init sequence to complete, and this just looks for a success file. I think, and when that file is present, it says it is done, and I think it has a timeout of say 5 minutes or something. Now, one of the cases we saw the failure was that uh, the cloud init sequence would sometimes take more time than the uh, wait sequence of the extension, and due to that those conflicts were coming, that extension would time out but cloud init was not completed. So we would get that error that the operation took too long and the VM wouldn't join. So we worked around that problem by by kind of uh, making a change in the cloud init code that kind of it had some wait cycles to look for the metadata endpoint where it was getting into some loop, and we kind of fixed that, kind of made some custom changes, and we hard coded that to the Azure instance metadata endpoint, and that kind of had been working. But we still see issues, where the Windows meter failed to join, and the interesting observation around that is that these issues someday, a few days won't come up. The instance would join up pretty well, under 2 minutes, under 3 minutes, and no issues. But some days they just keep coming back to back. So we don't have a very well-defined reproduce case. We wanted more help to how to debug, to such kind of issues.
Right. Sorry, I was just trying to take some notes, catch up with you. It seems like it's difficult to debug the extensions. A lot of times, all you can see in the portal is that they failed, and I don't have any. Does anyone have any good ideas about digging into extensions? I don't have a lot of experience here, and I've had problems the last couple times I've tried to figure out what's going on. Rahul
So
also
for
sorry, go ahead.
one of the sorry for interrupting. for one of the VMs, we were even actually able to get the cloud init logs. We're happy to even share if that is something can help, if any of the experts around that area.
I'm sure that would help. Is there a GitHub issue already for this specific thing or not?
No, we had not created one because we were not sure where it lied and what information should we provide, but
Right.
we can go ahead and do that.
That would probably be the best place to start just because some of the people with expertise aren't at this meeting, and specifically people with Windows expertise might want to chime in here. Yeah, I think that's probably the best place to start is have a GitHub issue we can all focus on. And I don't have any particular ideas about debugging VM extensions. Does anyone else? I usually try to get into the node SSH and poke around but it's difficult sometimes to capture them. Depending on whether you're running it interactively or in a test.
Yeah, I would agree. Like, maybe posting a GitHub issue or also Slack could help a lot because there's a lot of context, I think. And yeah, VM extension issues are kind of difficult to debug. I know there was like times when it would time out, but it shouldn't consistently time out. So I don't think like raising the timeout would be the fix here, but yeah, we can definitely take a look once like a closer look once there's like an issue or a Slack message posted.
Okay. Saurabh, you have anything to add here? I can go ahead and create a ticket on GitHub and share the logs and whatever information we have collected so far.
Okay, Rahul. I think that should work for us as of now. I don't have anything extra to add.
Okay, so we'll create a GitHub issue, or you'll create a GitHub issue, and we can focus on that.
Sure.
I was mumbling about Windows expertise, and then Mark and James both joined us. So before we move off this topic, I took some notes here about what Rahul was just talking about. He's here from Adobe, and they're doing a lot of Windows testing and running into basically VM extension issues and wondering how to debug that. If either you have any fresh ideas, otherwise we're just going to swarm on a GitHub issue.
Are they seeing issues that we're not seeing in any of the CapZ CI? Or the SIG Windows Upstream CI?
Sorry, I missed you. Like, can you repeat?
I was just asking if we know if they're seeing issues that like the CapZ project is not seeing in CI. Are they different issues, or are we able to reproduce it in any of the automated jobs or anything?
Yeah, we've been having some problems just in general with Windows nodes, although I think the main in CI running on the main branch. Although I think we fixed a lot of that, or Cecile did, right? So it's possible are you guys running things just off of the main branch, or have you? I'm not sure if that would be the main. Well, so if you're running off of close to our main branch, you may be running into some known issues that we've been trying to fix. One of which does boil down to VM extension problem, it looks like, right?
Yeah.
So far we. Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm just looking over the notes. I mean I don't know if. Yeah, oh, go ahead. Sorry, I was just looking at the notes. I don't have any ideas off the top of my head, but I'll have to look at this.
Sure. So we were able to pick up logs from one of the machines, the cloud init logs and the VM agent log. So I think we'll share them in the GitHub ticket, and probably that will help because. And I'll also share the logs from the machine, which works fine. So we could see considerable differences between the two, but we could make out, what could be the reason as to why that's the sequence was that.
Yeah, and do you know like roughly how often this is occurring?
Okay, that's very hard to answer, but some days it just keeps happening one after another. It's no ways to stop, and some days it will just work fine for a few days and no issues continuously. It will run for a week, no issues. It will scale up, scale down, but some days it just is there, and there is no way for us to, so we have that machine health check, and that will just keep failing, and it will try to bring up new instances again and again, and that sequence will go on for a long.
Okay, yeah, I'm asking mainly because all like most of the the end jobs we have running in the Kubernetes project are using that run Windows nodes are using capz and would be using the same extension, and we haven't seen anything super like I haven't really noticed any patterns of the VM extensions failing or the nodes not coming up, especially recently, but we'll definitely take a look. I think the logs will be helpful.
Yeah, we did have some issues like a year ago where we were having some pretty consistent problems with the image, the cloud init stuff. But I think we've resolved that since then, and haven't seen any issues at least in the upstream tests that we monitor, which run every few hours. And so we probably have 6 or 7 runs a day and don't really see any issues that I'm aware of. So,
well, we resolved that by updating the Cloud Init agents and like that we installed during the image builder build or the image builder builds, right? We should probably make sure that they're on the latest version of that has some of the fixes.
yeah, if you're using the latest image builder images, then you'll have the latest cloud base in it.
So we don't use image builder to use our build our images. We have our own, baking pipeline because there are a lot of other steps we need to do. So, but yeah, we have borrowed some of the, Ansible playbooks from the, the image builder.
Okay, yeah. So just making sure you're on the latest cloud-based init for Azure, that will definitely help.
Sure.
Yeah, there were
we'll take that.
there were some service dependency start issues that got resolved in that that would have it so I think networking was coming up too early occasionally.
Cool. Thanks for the help, guys. Anything else you want to say about this issue? Or we'll just wait.
I think we have. I think we have our next steps. We'll touch base on the GitHub issue.
Yeah, feel free to tag Mark and myself on that to get our attention.
That's good. All right, the next topic is also yours, Rahul, talking about Hyper-V.
Yes. So again, as I mentioned initially, so for us, the requirement is to run untrusted code from some of our partners within our cluster. So that's why our focus has been to run Hyper-V isolated containers. Now, within the I know that Kubernetes officially doesn't support Hyper-V containers because that's what the official documentation page says. But wanted that if we your team has been able to run such certain experiments, or you have certain document or guideline as to how to go about that. We've seen that container D, which I think the 170 kind of has built that support, but we've not been able to see out what's the right way to go about kind of enabling that.
So I don't remember all of the details here, but we can get them to you. So container D17 does have some support for running Windows containers with the Hyper-V isolated mode. There is, and that's all controlled through runtime classes. There is a default runtime class in the container D configs or in the defaults for running like, so I want to be clear. I think the only things that we've really tested so far and that is kind of functional in Containerd right now is running Hyper-V isolated containers that are the same like OS as the host. Even though Hyper-V isolated containers on Windows allow you to kind of do that mismatch. So running like Windows Server 2022 containers on Windows Server 2022. And the big reason for that is there's a lot of the platform matching logic and stuff for the container polls and stuff before starting the container still needs to be worked out. But you should be able to run the Hyper-V isolated containers if you're running the same Windows Server version for the containers and the nodes by using the default runtime class names. And I don't have those off the top of my head, but we can get those. And then you just need to make sure you have a runtime class handler defined in your cluster and set the runtime class names for the pods that you want to run. And it should run all of the workload, or it should run all of the pods, run all the containers in the pod as Hyper-V isolated containers. We don't have a ton of testing for that upstream, but we've got some basic tests and it appears like most stuff is working.
So I think you refer to the runtime class. I think that comes up default is run HCS or wow upstream, something like that. So we have used that. So we've been able to kind of run Hyper-V, but what the problem we had faced is that the container did not have any network. So that was a primary problem we faced, that even if it was running Hyper-V, there was no network inside the container, so we couldn't connect to it.
Okay,
so
if that's the case, I'm probably going to ask if you to open up an issue in the Microsoft Windows containers GitHub repository. I can put a link to that in the notes. With
so
that,
if I launch that issue, I don't face if I launch it via Docker on my laptop. I get network. It's only under that environment when I'm launching it under the Kubernetes environment with Calico as the CNI. I don't know where what configuration extra is missing.
Yeah, I don't know off the top of my head with that. Some other folks in Microsoft are really driving the Hyper-V isolated containers in Containerd, but we can definitely take a look.
I'm looking at our so we do have a test grid job that we set up to test this, and it looks like most of the networking tests are failing. So that may be pretty consistent. It might be also worth opening up a PR with, an issue with Calico, which is what we actually use for our test too.
Yeah, I'd opened that, but I never really got anything on that.
Yeah, I think we need to do a little bit of investigation to figure out what's wrong. If we need to change all the CNI coordination in Containerd, or if it's an issue in Calico, or if it's an issue with the Hyper-V isolated containers themselves.
Okay.
Yeah, the biggest thing we're kind of waiting on is the platform matching logic in Containerd. So there's some work that's being done to fix that, and then once that's kind of resolved, we're going to kind of dive deeper. So you're right on the bleeding edge of this. So yeah, if you can open up issues and things, we can start to push towards that.
Okay.
Cool. Does that sound like a good resolution for now? Yeah, go ahead, Rahul.
Yeah. I think I will watch out. I'll kind of notify those Calico tickets that we have. Probably in a ticket in capsule itself, a reference to that, so that whenever you guys are on it, you can have a look at it. Or if there are any pointers that you can point us to, maybe we can also look at and contribute back.
Sounds good. Any other commentary on Hyper-V stuff?
So in your experience, have you seen others trying it out, or is this something, very rarely, people using?
In Kubernetes, you'll be one of the first people to be pushing forward on this.
Okay.
Trailblazers. Cool. Do we have any other general discussion topics? Anything on people's mind? If not, we can do our traditional milestone review triage. I don't remember what the script is now. So I tend to go to milestone review, but if we want to edit our project board, we could do that. I just don't have the link to it, so I'm going to go. So unless someone objects, I'm going to do the milestone review for now. All right. And we'll try not to spend a lot of time here. I think most of us are well aware of the remaining tasks. I think overall we're doing pretty well. We have a good chance of landing most of the important things. So let me just do the slow scroll over this, and if people want to volunteer an update or say anything about them, just jump in. Otherwise, we'll keep scrolling. Oops, what did I do? GitHub did that. I was saying yesterday, Jonathan's gone this week, but actually I think the CapH integration stuff is in a pretty good place. So hopefully that'll all land. This one I know lots of people obviously want to know about. It's very, very close. I'm trying to figure out some little diff that I think is preventing things from reconciling. Rahul, go ahead. You raise your hand. No?
Just that you brought the topic of the health chart, so just something came back in my mind. There is this cluster CTL initialize step where we use the CLI to kind of initialize the management cluster. Is there an alternative? Are there some health charts to do that rather than using the CLI?
An alternative to using cluster cuddle. I'm sorry, I couldn't hear the whole thing.
So, the first step is to initialize the management cluster where you do a cluster CTL init on the management cluster. So I'm asking if there is a replacement to that by kind of deploying some health charts on the management cluster itself. We can get all the CAPI, CAPZ components.
It's a good question, and it's come up here a few times in the past. Like, what is there a Helm chart you could just use instead of requiring cluster cuddle init? I know there have been some attempts at making a Helm chart. I don't think there's nothing officially supported as far as I'm aware. There's also a project to develop a Kubernetes operator, a whole CRD itself that would be responsible for installing and updating and managing the lifecycle of cluster API itself, which is, we're getting pretty meta here when we talk about that stuff. But that's all I recall. But I may be misrepresenting things. Do people know anything about the Helm chart for CAPI or anything like that? As far as I'm aware, Rahul, there's nothing official, but there definitely are some attempts out there, and I don't have the links at hand, but I can try and dredge them up.
Okay. We have made our attempts, some of our attempts on our side, but we couldn't really match what Cluster CTL was doing. So
Yeah,
so far we
there's probably some funky logic inside cluster CTL that makes it difficult to do a Helm chart, but in principle, I don't know why you couldn't.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, does anyone have anything to say about the milestone remaining items? It seems like no. Let's move on. We can look at issues that haven't been tagged. This one has this, we're using a priority label to know whether we sort of visited these or not. It was.
I have a PR for this. So this this should be fixed pretty soon.
It's in the
Like
milestone.
3 minutes ago. Yeah.
Great. I guess I'll just go ahead and add a priority label anyway, since that's our thing. I forget what the values are. We have backlog, we have important soon, important now. What would this be?
Important long term, maybe. It's not a super critical must needed thing,
Sure.
but it's a good valid ask.
Yeah. All right.
Thank
Just
you.
so we know that we were here. John?
Matt, just to absolve you of some responsibility, I think we've only really been adding the priority label to bugs. If we want to kind of limit our exposure to just those, I think that's what we've been doing the past few weeks anyway.
Okay, sure. This is bad. Nickel urgent. I think that's one of them. It was, okay, good. X validation on cluster. Oh. It should be easy to fix, he said, without knowing what he's talking about. But, sorry, John, go ahead.
Sorry, this is for the last one, so maybe we can finish this one and then jump back.
Sure. Let's just say priority. I guess backlog technically, although it seems like it should be fixed soon. Back button. This one.
Yeah, I'm just kind of thinking somewhat philosophically that if we tag something as critical urgent, should we like make sure someone's actively working on this right now? Like, I don't think anyone's assigned to this issue, right? So maybe that might be good to just do right now.
Anyone want to volunteer?
I can definitely help take a look.
Can I assign you to it? So someone's
Yeah.
on it? Okay. I have such a hard time spelling your name backwards. I think that's why you did it. A feature, good first issue, this tagged. API change. I think we've actually touched all these at this point. It looks like, oh well. This hasn't been, we're already on this. And we have touched all these. This one I'm going to close. Actually, and this one we have touched already, but just for consistencies. Okay, and PRs generally are taking care of themselves. Oh, great. This is actually, let's make sure these on the milestone. Well, view. And do you have anything else? This I just opened up because I had an old commit. And I think this would be a better example for people who want to implement services on SDK v2 with async, because this has some other, this has to do a list and a pager and stuff like that. This should be on the milestone, needs review. Any of these others, should this be in the milestone, Nawaz, the add action field? Or is it?
Yeah, I think we already added the issue to this. So this is the PR for that.
It's
Thank you.
looking for review.
Uh-huh.
Um, this is not in the milestone, but probably should have been, right? I think the issue was. Okay, well, I'm pretty sure we've visited most of these, and if not, people can update their status. Is there anything anybody wants to highlight or make sure is on the milestone or needs status change? Otherwise, I think we can call it sort of done for now. We have a couple more weeks. Well, September 12th is the release, the planned release date, and I think we're in pretty good shape for that. So we actually have like 3 more weeks, just so everyone's aware. Great. Well, that's it for the agenda. Does anybody have anything else they want to add? All right, let's call it good for today. Thanks for coming, everybody. See you next week.
Thanks for driving this, Matt.
Thanks, Matt.
Thank you.